Welcome to the AirCon Vault. Here you can find the recordings of the live streams from Airwiggle's audio conference. These are made free thanks to our sponsors: our sound effect, Aftertouch Audio, Boom Library, Fmod, Game Audio Learning, Game SoundCon, Kilohearts, Rev Rooms, Sound Cuts, Strata from Audio Kinetic, and Airwiggles, the online home for audio people. We hope you enjoy the video.
Welcome everyone, this is Audio Direction in Media. We have a panel of some wonderful people who have been sound supervisors on films, audio directors for games, and we're kind of going to weave the two together and see what it really takes to be an audio director, what it means for responsibilities, our best tips, and things like that. So we're going to do a quick about me where we go around, and then we will go ahead and get started. So let's start with you, Andrea.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Chang. Most recently, I worked at Hi-Rez, where I was the audio director for all the games in the studio, including Smite 2, Smite, Realm Royale, Paladins, Rogue Company, Divine Knockout. I'm probably forgetting. But yeah, basically the games in Hi-Rez. And I helped build the audio team there and was audio director there for about 6 years. Previous to that, I worked at Microsoft on the HoloLens, where I was an audio lead on the app ActionGram. And then I also worked on the central audio team at Microsoft, establishing like the sonic languages across all the apps, across multiple platforms, Windows and HoloLens and etc. And then previous to that, I worked at Electronic Arts on the MOBA Dawn Gates that had an unfortunate ending, but it was a beloved game by EA that got canceled. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me. I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia. Previous to that, lived in Washington and then grew up in California. So kind of all over the place.
Yeah, that's an incredible set of credits and bio, and I really like the free piano lessons. And
oh, thank you. Yes, yeah. So now I've kind of pivoted to publishing books, and so it's a nice, refreshing change. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, we'll go to you, Kevin. Uh-oh, he froze. You're still muted, but we can see you. How about we go to you, Matthew, for now, and then
hey, everybody. I'm Matthew Marteinsson. I've been doing games since 2023. I've been at Clay Entertainment for the last 14 years, and while I'm not an audio director per se, we have no job titles. Clay, I have definitely directed the audio vision of many a game, as it were. So I'm very much admired in the creating the audio of the game, not having to deal with the bureaucracy of being an audio director on a AAA level. So I guess I just get to do the creative fun parts, so to speak. Along with doing my regular day-to-day game audio work, I organize a meetup here in Vancouver. I do a podcast called Beards, Cats, and Indie Game Audio. Used to do a conference in Bellingham called Audio Bash that got the Seattle and Vancouver communities together once or twice a year. And back in it was 2017, I think it was, I kicked off Carousel Con, which is the free lunchtime talks at GDC. And thankfully, since I've stopped going, other people have kept that up. So Carousel Con lives on without me, which is pretty awesome. So keep pretty busy. And then in my spare time, I make a lot of ambient music. So.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you for all the community organizing you've done over the years. It's been really incredible. All right, Kevin, we're going to try with you again.
Yeah, is it working now?
Yes.
The mic mute got frozen on mute for me. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm Kevin Senzaki. I'm in LA area right now. I got started doing sound for YouTube channels in the early 2010s for a couple channels called Rocket Jump and Corridor Digital that were doing weekly, pretty high quality action shorts. So I was sort of tackling a different genre every week, handling all the post sound, a lot of band-aiding, getting it to hold together. But that was a good crash course in sort of committing to creative decisions early, having ideas and testing them out right away. And then after a few years, as the YouTube model kept changing, and that wasn't really a profitable way to sustain a small company or really break into the conventional industry, a lot of my contacts all started going different directions, and they sort of pulled me along with them. So after that, I ended up doing features, TV, streaming, a few games. So in the film world where I usually live, I alternate between being a sound designer or a sound supervisor. It usually comes down to whether I'm approached first about the project or a mixer is and they hire me on to assist. And then in the game world, I was one of the 2 audio directors on the indie game Immortality, but I was working with one person, so it was a very small team to direct.
Yeah, and another incredible set of credits and things you've done. Thank you so much for being here. This is really awesome. So a bit about me. I'm a lot earlier in my career than the folks you see here. I have been working on Airborne Empire, a small city builder in the sky that also has combat. I've also done short films, all the post sound for those. So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle here and spend a lot of my time doing community organizing for the IGDA Climate Special Interest Group, Seattle Game Audio, and then as of recently, a group that kind of brings a bunch of game audio community organizers together to see how we can help each other. So without further ado, we are going to start asking questions. Our first one is going to be, why is it important to establish the audio direction or sound supervision of a project at the beginning, even if you're a team of one person? So we'll start with you, Andrea.
Well, yeah, I think oh, you can hear me, right? Okay.
Yes.
I think regardless of the size of the project, I mean, it's always important to establish the audio direction, because if you don't, then it's going to get very costly when the stakeholders aren't on the same page with you throughout the creative process. So that's just something you want to establish upfront. You don't want to have a million revisions. If you can establish, okay, this is kind of the sonic landscape that we're targeting, and an audio director can be hands-on with that, or they can be not hands-on depending on the size of the team. If it's a large team, the audio director will be hands-on, or the audio director will likely establish the vision and have the sound designers kind of implement that, or they may also want to contribute to that. But regardless, it's just for both process as well as cost and time. That's just something that is like fundamental to the project, that if you don't establish that up front, it's going to just probably be a failure. Yeah, I mean, we've had projects where, the milestones or the expectations kept shifting, and every iteration, it's like that would put production behind on things, and that would be like with time, resources, and everything, right? So that's just something that if creatively, it might be like you come up with 3 different directions and ask the stakeholders, like, okay, this is direction 1, direction 2, direction 3, like which one kind of are you leaning towards, and have them give you some idea and some feedback, and you get some idea of like where they're at in their head, because audio is very abstract and sometimes people don't know how to communicate the words properly about that. So having some concrete examples of the style or the idea that you're thinking about sound designing usually is kind of my go-to process for that. That way you can kind of get feedback immediately about like if you're on target or not.
Absolutely. For what you said about the concrete examples, we'll go a bit into tips later, but I think that's a huge one of they can actually put to words and hear what you meant when you said, it sounds like a cold, sharp sound, because for us, we might have words for that, but for them, they'll go, well, what? Cold, sharp? No, I can only hear it. So I think that's huge. Great answer. All right, what about you, Kevin?
Since I do a lot of stuff in the film world, a lot of it comes from worst case scenario. We start the spotting session, which is where we just watch through the entire project and start taking notes on what everybody thinks they want to contribute in terms of sound. Hopefully, the composer is also involved. For anyone getting into like indie films, that's something you should really try to do with the directors, even if you're working remotely, even if you're not able to do it in real time. Just go through the whole film and list out the ideas, and in those scenarios, I might pick a few, places to try out the style. But yeah, when time allows and you're able to prepare a little more, it's always good to try to sync up creatively just with what the sort of the energy of the project is and what it needs. And if you can understand just the emotions and the sort of ideas that the piece is trying to convey, and everyone can kind of agree on what those are, that'll free you up to sort of be productive in the right directions when you move forward and start experimenting and prototyping. So I think it's really important to come up with a common sort of thematic language, even if it is a little abstract, but that helps you narrow down and discuss things in more tangible, actionable language later on. So you don't get stuck in a process where you're getting close to a deadline, the director's saying, I want this to feel more real. It's like, well, what does real mean? That could mean louder. That could mean we tone it down. That could mean we go more hyper real. That could mean anything. So hopefully you have those discussions about things like style, genre taste, and have that shared vision. And that can also start informing some of your big choices, like in film, if you're going to need to go field record, or if you can design it from library, or if it's going to be more synthesized or organic, you can start making those bigger direction decisions too. But I think at the most basic level, it's really important just to understand what the piece wants to be, so you can contribute productively to that shared vision.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like communication is really important throughout, and to be able to find that common language so you stay in sync. Absolutely. What about you, Matthew?
Great points. Like Andrea and Kevin, basically just kind of back up everything that they said, really. Like it's, I find that as audio people in games, we don't really have much film experience or TV experience. We are enacting somebody else's vision. There is a lead designers, whatever it is that's creating this game, and we are backing them up. We are backing up the game that they want to make, and we need their support to do our best work. So if we can produce some sort of audio direction vision for them at the beginning of a project, when they're devising when they're prototyping art and design and the themes and all that, if we can back up audio wise their pillars, we get the buy-in from them. And if we get the buy-in, then we are more likely to be left to go do what we want to do and what we think is right. If we don't provide a direction to everything, we're probably not going to get the belief that we can do the job that we can do, and there's going to be a breakdown in that communication. Like you're saying, the communication is so key. And we want them to be like, hey, we're all on the same page. You agree that what I have said is, what I want to do, that it's cool, or we've revised it until we get to that point. And now you'll let me go off and do all the stuff I need to do to make the really cool audio to support all of the stuff that we need for this game. When I did Mark the Ninja was very well received in the industry, won awards and everything. And I got like lots of praise for the audio in the game. And I'm like, I don't think it's any better sounding game than anything else, but I really supported the vision of the design of the game. So it's an incredibly well-designed game, and I just supported the hell out of that, which made it sound better because it was all like this, and it was just lockstep everything. And that was getting the audio direction on board with the design and being able to run forward with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We are married to the vision and are often coming after besides ideas. So being able to support a really good story helps our sound design also stand out, and it makes audio direction even more important. All right, we are going to go to our next question, which is, what do you consider to be audio directing skills, and where did you learn some of these skills? I'll start with you, Andrea.
Yeah, well, audio directing skills, sometimes everything is thrown at you, at the end of the day, it's like you are, we have a saying like one ass to kick, right? And so, you're the ass to kick if audio goes wrong, basically. So, you have to make sure it sounds good. You have to make sure team morale is good. You have to make sure you're growing your sound designers, that they're improving their skills. You have to make sure you're managing up, managing down, managing sideways, and you have to make sure that you are hitting, the timeline and the resources and the hiring and the outsourcing and the, all of that stuff, like the project audio stuff, as well as the corporate, all the other things that come with, being in a lead or manager position. So, I mean, I think that is kind of all encompassing, where you have to be, you have to have that strong anchor of the audio direction we talked about in the first question, right? And you have to make sure that all of your sound designers, whether they're internal or external, are executing on that vision. And then I think like what Matthew said was really important about having the buy-in, like, because that is, a lot of it is about perception too, right? Like, it may be even the same sound, but like how you frame it and how you communicate and how you get people to rally behind it, that also matters with how they'll receive the audio. Having one-on-ones with other design directors and art directors, and making sure that you're collaborating with them. All of that, I think, is part of the audio director role. And so it can get overwhelming, with being able to juggle all that. But I think that the key is to make sure that you hire a good team, and that, everyone is happy and fulfilled and doing what they enjoyed doing, like sound designing, right? If that is their thing, right? Some people enjoy mentoring, right? And so putting maybe a senior sound designer to mentor a junior sound designer. We, in the past, we've had Fridays where we try to do R&D and try to let people be creative and think out of the box outside of what their assignments are, just so that creatively they don't get dry, and they can, have a bit of fun and get inspired. And a lot of times those things, we ended up implementing those systems into the game. And so, it is a creative process. So it's important to keep creativity at the focus of that. But there's also, it is a company, it is a business, right? And so you are trying to make sure that audio is valued, because as a lot of you guys know, people don't care about audio, and it's at the end of the pipeline, and there's no time for it because it's at the end of the pipeline. So being a strong advocate for it, being friends with the producers, right? And saying like, hey, there's only one day allotted, and like art has like 50 days, right? So, I mean, all of that, I think, is under the umbrella of being an audio director, and you can try to learn some of that, right? But a lot of it is on the job. And I think a lot of it is also soft skills and, learning to interface with people, because I would say that that's like just as important as your audio skills if you want to go into a lead or a management position, because you'll be interfacing with people most of the time. And, obviously you have to have strong audio skills too in order to mentor your team, but being able to communicate and establish those relationships with stakeholders is equally as important. So yeah, I don't know. It's a whole bunch of things, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even if you're managing a team of one, that you still kind of need those skills, but absolutely, yeah, if you have a team, being able to give them room to breathe and be creative, and to know when are they exhausted I could absolutely see that being a big deal. All right, what about you, Kevin?
I'm predominantly doing, from a sound supervisor position, a lot of feature films. So everyone is sort of an outsourced person. I don't really have an in-house staff because it's just me in my bedroom. So one of the most important things to me is within my network, knowing who might be a good fit for a certain project, calling the right people where I think their natural instincts will bring something interesting and genuine to that project. So it might be, if it's something related to a genre they like, it might be related to their personal background. Another thing that's really important in my position is knowing what a reasonable budget is, because a lot of times I work with repeat collaborators on the production, producer, director side, which is wonderful. But then it's knowing upfront for what they want to achieve, how much it's going to cost to do it, say if we're going to do an Atmos mix, or how much it's going to cost if they want to have it fully filled fully so they can do foreign dubs. And then coming up with ahead of time so we don't jump into the show and then realize, oh, we're all going to be making way below minimum wage because we just, we bit off more than we could chew. So I think that's a really important skill. And just, growing those relationships over time. In film, the project turnover is much quicker than in games. I might be on a film for as short as 1 or 2 days, depending on my role. I just finished up a studio picture, and I think I was on it for about 7 weeks, which for me is an eternity. But you want to, if there's people you enjoy working with in film, a lot of times they'll come back year after year with new projects. And as you grow those relationships, it helps make those negotiations easier. Those soft skills kind of help with you as you know those people. But it's important to sort of be realistic about what things are going to cost in terms of time and effort. And selecting people who, again, will bring something to it. I have a thought, and it's coming back to me right now. The other thing I really try to do is let the other sound people that I'm collaborating know sort of upfront what the big picture is, but then I try to be as specific and actionable as possible once we get into notes. In the film world, they're not delivering any final assets. It usually all comes to me, and then I deliver it to the mix stage. So I sort of am the final tastemaker where I can do little tweaks to their stuff to make sure it's all stylistically coherent. But I think another really important skill is being able to articulate feedback if a scene isn't working for you emotionally, figure out ways to say it that or actually mean something to someone else who, vague words like happy or sad might not carry the same nuance. So if it's like, well, the footsteps in the scene aren't sad enough, that's not the best way to say it. It's developing the skills to say, okay, I think the surface isn't quite the right match for the mood of the scene, or this character is sad, let's actually get a grittier surface on there and then go a little lighter, have a little more, obvious heel-toe differentiation. Just anything where you are giving directions that can be actually executed instead of lecturing on and on about philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also can prevent too many revisions going back and forth since something isn't being articulated in a way where someone else is interpreting it kind of the way that you envisioned. Those are all great points.
Yeah.
Especially in finding cost.
And it's also shielding your people when you can. If a ridiculous note comes down from the producer, if it isn't really technically my responsibility, but I can do it, and it makes sense for time, then it's important to know when you should jump in front of certain bullets also.
Absolutely. For Matthew, what about establishing audio direction skills? What do you think you need to be able to scope properly and execute audio direction skill-wise?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm thankfully shielded from all the business aspects. I don't have to think about that, which is kind of a luxury that a lot of us don't have at this kind of level. But the soft skills are the biggest thing to me when it comes to the direction part of it. It's yeah, we're all good sound designers. We're hiring good sound designers. Our skills as sound designers isn't really the question at this point. It's how well are we communicating with the other stakeholders, be it designers, artists, whoever it is, that we can talk the same talk and then deliver what we have agreed upon. And sometimes it's figuring out what they're saying. So is soft skill of translating programmer, designer, artist talk into audio talk. The worst feedback I've ever gotten, I say this all the time, it's my go-to quote, I had a producer go, "Can we make it more purple?" And I was like, I don't know what to do that, and that was, we had not had enough conversations leading up to that to get on the same page language-wise. Like you were saying, Sabrina, like, it's too cold. Like, well, what does that mean? Like, it means different things to different people. So like, if you can front load your project with those conversations and get on the same page about where you're going and what you mean when you say things, those soft skills to do that are incredibly important, so that when they give you the feedback, you're like, right, this is actionable, not, I don't know what to do this. In my case, I just made a change and gave it back to them. And is that more purple? I need more data points. Like, and then you do needless revisions while you're trying to chase down what it is they actually want. When we all just want to give you the other person on the other side, we want to give them what they want. We don't want to be artistes and hold up the process because, some dumb thing. We just want to make everybody happy and make a cool sounding project. So yeah, soft skills, that's the biggest thing for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's so much where when we think audio direction, we're thinking, oh, it's a sound job, but it's so much of managing people as well and figuring out what do they mean, what do they really want when they're hiring for a sound person. It's never just sound effects. So absolutely agree. All right, we are going to go on to the next one, which is, do you prefer having a sound team or working on your own if you had the luxury to choose, and why? So we'll start with you this time, Matthew.
To me, I have been the single sound person on my projects for many years at this point. We have multiple projects on the go at my studio, Clay, and there's a sound person on each one. So we all kind of work individually on these small little teams. For the games of the size we're doing, one person is great. And I think the size of the project is really dependent on whether or not I would want a team or happy to be a solo person. If the game's small enough, I'm happy to be a solo person. And then you make decisions, based on the how much time you have to get stuff done and how long this takes. But the scope of the project is really, to me, what's going to determine where I'm happy with that. Because if it's like, right, we're doing a open world MMO and there's one person, you're like, I'm dead, but if we're doing a little platformer that's 2 hours long and you're like, here's 6 people, you're like, I don't even know what to do with everybody at this point. We're all just going to be stumbling over each other and stuff. So project size really, to me, determines what's good,
Yeah, for sure.
Staff size.
Absolutely. Scoping is definitely, I think, a key part of figuring out whether you prefer to work alone. What about you, Kevin?
I agree. I feel like I do, in a way, my most intuitive and best sound design when I'm also doing everything else, because that enables me to mix while I'm editing. And I feel like, I'm holding the whole context of the project in my hands. But the really nice thing about when projects scale up and that's no longer feasible, if I'm able to work with people who we have a good synergy, but they bring different disciplines, different backgrounds to it, you can get really interesting results. Like I do a lot of the sound design on the show 100 Foot Wave, which is on Max or HBO Max, whatever they're calling it. And my responsibility on that show is basically the waves and then cut Foley if it sounds like it's important. And then the mixer is able to take that and the material from the backgrounds editors, the more full coverage effects editors, and they're able to make it fit. But in that collaborative environment, we've come up with a language where I still feel comfortable. I feel like I can work and just cut things, and they'll fall into place. So there's advantages to both, but I think a lot of it really is the scale of the project. And if you do need to scale up, it's finding the right team, ideally.
Yeah, definitely. It can be nice when you're the only person working because you have the flow you need or not waiting on anyone, but there's definitely a certain point where you need more help for sure. And I'd be very curious to ask you more about documentary, what you would need as a sound supervisor for that versus features, but we'll go on for now and see if we have time at the end. All right, what about you, Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree for the most part, like skill is important. I do feel like there is something special about working on a team. I feel like having the different perspectives and being able to bounce off ideas off of other sound designers. Sometimes if you're stuck or something, and having someone else in audio listen to it and giving feedback, I feel like is a crucial part of sound designing, just because I think as audio people, maybe most of us are introverted and just prefer to be in our own little basement, sound designing or doing whatever. But I do think that like the end product, at least based on my experience, has been better when it's more collaborative, just because you get more perspectives, you get more ideas, you get more feedback, you get more like, oh, what if you try this plugin on it, right? Or like, oh, I didn't think about that, right? So as long as each person has ownership of their specific thing and can be proud and be successful in sound designing, that they're allotted, even if it's one character, right, or one spell, or I don't know. I think that as long as people feel ownership of that, then and are challenged creatively, then I feel like if you have a team, then that's great. Then everyone can grow with each other and make each other better and even challenge each other too. So,
Yeah, I really like what you said about ownership in particular. I didn't think about the way that someone at the end needs to know, like, I can take credit of this, I can tell people about it, my team will back me up, I can tell other people what they did, and just how helpful that is mentally as you're working and afterwards. So I really appreciate that. All right, those are kind of our background questions. So we're going to go to the scoping and planning portion. So what would the research or scoping phase consist of when you're beginning to work on a new project? Like it's your first time seeing the footage, if it's film and the script, or when we're just first seeing the project for games. So we will start with you, Andrea.
So I mean, I think that what's important in the research phase is like making sure that you establish that palette that will be kind of thematically cohesive across the rest of the project. And a lot of that will be informed by the art or the visuals, and also obviously a lot of conversations with all the stakeholders that are involved, and doing that stylistic exploration, kind of coming up with that audio bible of this is our sonic landscape and these are the materials that we will be using for the ice spells, and these are the ones that we'll be using for the more realistic sounds, right? So and then coming up with processing chains and plugins that if you are working on a team, I think that's helpful to make sure that people are consistent. If you're using similar raw materials, right, raw audio files, I think that's helpful, and having those field recording sessions to kind of come up with ideas. So usually what we do is we in order to come up with that palette, we either record or we go through the library and we just put together a whole session of things that sound like this character, and then from there, then use that as a palette to kind of sound design too for each of the individual abilities, and then then we do like the stylistic explorations, like if we want to go slightly different this direction or that direction, if it's on a threshold, right, like how cartoony is it or how realistic is it, right, where does it fall stylistically, and that's helpful when you give the stakeholders like these different versions of it. But at least then you have your palette established, your processing pipeline established, and then having an idea both visually as well as the music of the game. That's also helpful because that's another key part of the soundscape, and making sure that the sound design matches that. So I would say that that's kind of, in general, the research sound design portion of our projects.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm sure having those processing chains really helps with cohesion too, especially among multiple people. And if there's a new member, they can have that as a guide. You don't have to scramble. So I love that. What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, a lot of it in film is, I think, identifying how specific of ideas, say, the director may have about the project, because sometimes they'll really hand up something over a blank slate. I'm working on a project right now. To be fair, I've worked with these people before, but the entire brief I got was, all right, we're doing another one. I'm like, okay, that's the note. So they're just 100% letting me do. They let me do a full first pass on it, and I'm waiting on notes. And then sometimes directors may be, big cinephiles, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's going to be just like the scene in this movie," and like, I've never seen that movie, so I'll take a note, and I'll try to at least YouTube the part they're talking about. If I can't find it, I'll try to find other ways to look for it. But a lot of it is figuring out how specific their ideas are, and a lot of times in things like horror or sci-fi projects, that'll come down to things like creatures. Do you have something in mind? Are we doing the same overprocessed kind of oscillating screams that we hear all the time now, or can we try something different? And then that'll at least, kind of guide your initial trial and error. Some projects will have very specific demands that'll make themselves apparent when you start, when you first watch the cut. Like if it's set in a very specific place. I just finished a film that was shot in Tokyo, which is a city I'm reasonably familiar with, but we were fortunate to review the cut right before I went on a family trip there. So while I was in Tokyo, I field recorded things that I felt would be really useful to have in the library. I think maybe the most intense prep I did in terms of focus was for the game Immortality, where the director Sam Barlow had picked specific films that he was modeling the game after. So that was a full motion video game where they shot a bunch of footage that was meant to be dailies from these films that were made in the past, and none of them were ever finished. But each film had a real life sort of companion film that it was based on. So when we started prepping, that gave me reference. I could, rip scenes in the movie, run them through RX and frequency analyzers, try to figure out the tangible qualities so we could build plug-in chains in advance before they even hit post. But it's, I think usually when you see something, you go right away, uh-oh, this is going to take some work. And then you just try to, address that as soon as you can.
I like that. Uh-oh. Like, how much work will that be is kind of the next portion, I guess, in structuring it. But that was a great idea to field record. And I really like your idea of analyzing the waveform in a spectrograph to take a look at kind of how to emulate it and do processing. That's a great tip. What about you, Matthew?
Similar to everybody else. It's the research involves, okay, what are we referencing, if there's any references, because nothing is created in a vacuum. We're very often in games, we're jamming like 3 different games together, 3 different like things. It's like, okay, well, what else is in this genre that we're creating in? As you said, like, is it cartoony? Is it realistic? Like, where are we, like, just kind of to define where it is we're going, what kind of game it is, and then building those common libraries. Like, we've got the big master sound effects library, but like start pulling out of that and making a folder. Like, okay, I always take a bunch of sounds and be like, this is my folder for UI sounds. Every UI sound in the game is going to be made from this folder of sounds. So I know that there's something linking them together. And that comes down to a lot of like seeing the art, seeing the vibe, seeing where the setting is and everything, and being like, okay, this is what that kind of is leaning towards. All natural sounds, sci-fi sounds, like whatever it is, and I often will make up rules at that beginning stage of, like Andrew's saying, of like processing chains. Like, this is our master chain we're going to use on everything, and maybe this is our ambience chain, this is our creature chain, this is our action chain, whatever it is. Maybe there's more than one, but it's like set. We're always going to do this for that. And there's things that the setting comes into place, like Don't Starve. When I originally did that, it's weird magic and oddball stuff, and I was like, okay, this is a world of no synthesizers. So there's no synthesized sound in anything. It is all created from recordings and libraries, and the processing all has to fit real world magic and not like delays and synthesizers and stuff, which to me comes off as sci-fi. So it's like, how do we make some rules to always know that we're in this world? And that can go the other way. You can be like, well, this is, it's all taking place inside a computer, so there's no natural sounds. It all has to come from, you can, and as you go, you end up breaking some of these rules or changing them as the game changes. But you starting off at that, like, how can I set myself up with my libraries and my rules to support the pillars that I've decided that we're going forward with, that I've gotten the buy-in on. Of just like, it's a step down of like, we've gotten the buy-in and support, we've defined it. Okay, now how do I support those things? Okay, I'm going to give myself a set of rules and tools beforehand to like continue that. It's kind of like at each stage we do something so that we can not have to think about it again. And that way, if a year, 2 years down the line, we're still in the same game and you're like, what am I doing? Or I've had to bring in somebody new to the project. How do I get them to understand how to fit stuff into this world? It's like, right, here's the rules. Like, you've got a good start to go with.
Definitely. The common libraries and creative constraints of like core pillars or audio pillars, however you want to put them, feel just vital for not getting stuck in your head when it gets really hard towards the end too, where you start to think, oh, no, I gotta abandon it all. It's like, no, it could still work. Let's try. So I really like the common library idea and the processing again. All right, we're going to go to our next question, which are, if someone was establishing the audio direction of a game for the very first time, they'd never done it before, or a film, what are 1 of 3 tips you would give them that you'd like them to use? We'll start with you, Matthew.
On the spot.
Yeah.
About it. I would start with that. Going back to what I was already saying, I would like give yourself some rules. It doesn't have to be a lot. You don't have to have a giant like codex Bible of instructions for things. You can be really simple of just like a couple of things that give yourself, like, you give yourself these rules, and they're almost arbitrary. They're like whatever you feel fits the project, the scope, the setting, whatever it is. Like, don't starve. Okay, no synths, because that was just in my head. I'm like, this world doesn't use synths. Okay, that is a guidepost for me to start with, and at any point I can look back and like, am I hitting my guidepost? Well, no, I opened up a Omnisphere. Well, that I shouldn't have done that. That doesn't fit anything. So scrap that and pull back to grabbing some samples. So like, if you can define some fairly simple guideposts at the start, to just kind of narrow yourself down. Like, you can get more detailed in the scope of the direction later on, and as it goes, and as the project may become more apparent. Unlike film stuff, games, I think we come in at an earlier stage where it's evolving more. At least the way we make games, they're evolving quite a lot. Like, I worked on an RPG that turned into a card game. Like, that is like a massive difference and pivot that we had to do, But so you might be changing those guidelines as you go more, but like, at least give yourself something to start with. That empty page is probably the hardest part of everything, of going, well, what do I do? Here's the first concept art. I don't know, like, just giving yourself something. It's like when you're stuck on making a sound and you just grab a random sound out of your library and throw it on a timeline to just break that and get yourself started. So just make a rule of some kind to go with your stuff, and then start refining from there. Just like, get yourself moving.
Definitely. If you're stuck or thinking too long without doing anything, that's when the real trouble begins. What about you, Kevin?
I think something important, I think something that's intimidating for a lot of people, myself included, is like imposter syndrome. If it's your first time, oh no, I have to suddenly be the boss. But the way I always look at it is it's not a vertical hierarchy. I'm just bringing on more collaborators because there's so much work that needs to be done. So whenever I bring collaborators onto projects and I introduce them to the group email, I introduce them as my peer. And I just reiterate that I'm going to be the center point of contact. If you need to communicate things, I'm going to be the one who will, disseminate that information to the sound team. But fundamentally, I'm just another sound editor on the project. Like, I like getting involved. I like handling the same tasks. So I think, if anything, it doesn't mean you have to suddenly just be a boss and you're only handling the business side of things. You're still just one of the editors. And I think if you pull in people and have more of a equal footing, trusting relationship, you'll get better results. Of course, you still have to be responsible, but I think it's not being afraid of that responsibility. Been through a project yourself before on a smaller scale. You know what all the tasks are. It's the exact same thing. You're just going to need to, share the duties a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Trust and reliability always come back, I think, no matter what role you're starting in or what it is. What about you, Andrea?
So, I think we've talked a decent amount of how to establish the audio direction from a sound perspective for your audio team. But I think for the dev team, it is kind of like a pitch, right? So what I like to do is I like to make sure we have documentation of everything. Like, these are all the different explorations that we've gone through, and having vid caps of all of that, and then putting in a Google Slides and saying, first we started off with this, and then it evolved into that because we realized that it didn't match this character's personality, and then the art style changed, right? So kind of like walking them through your whole thought process of how you arrived at the audio direction that you did for the game, I think is helpful. And obviously having all of those audio samples, whether it's your palette, whether it's like the different stylistic explorations that you did, and then, being able to just, it's kind of like an elevator pitch in a way, right? Like, I think that's important to be able to verbalize and to demonstrate that within 10 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes, right? They're like, oh, so what is the sound of the game, right? Like, that's a very legitimate question that I think if you are directing the audio of the game, that you should be able to answer. And I think the best way to answer that is not with words, because as we've established, different words can mean different things to different people, right? So being able to just, here, look at this, right? Listen to this. And this is our audio direction, right? And that way it's kind of very clear about the process as well as where you ended up. And, I think that's helpful to show to stakeholders as well, to have discussions about if this is in alignment with the overall creative direction of the project. So yeah, that would be my tip is, make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's, and have, a pitch ready to showcase that.
Definitely. I have plenty to say, but I'll let Matthew take it away first.
I just want to say that keeping track of how you've gotten to the vision that you're presenting is such a good idea. Back when, before I worked in games, I was an assistant engineer in a recording studio, did a lot of jingle stuff. And there was this time I vividly remember where the jingle writer had written a jingle, guys had played it, and it was like, cool, we're kind of done, but the ad execs are showing up and they want to be run through the rigmarole and see what they're paying for, basically. And they came in and they listened to it and they're like, oh, well, but what if we change this? And what if we change this? And it's basically, we did this giant circle of trying all these things to get right back to where the composer had started with, because they had already done all of those things. They'd tried everything already, but they didn't have proof to show them that they've tried them and they didn't work. But if you've got that track record of hey, yes, here's our vision. Well, what if you tried this? Well, we tried that. We thought about that. And here's an example of why it won't work. It's such a good idea to fast track that approval of things of it's not just trust me. It's look, no, I've done it. Here is all the backup. Here's the receipts, for the stuff I've done. That's a great idea. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot harder to refute if you're already showing what you proposed and what you've done. So I could ask you a lot more questions, but I'm going to stop asking mine and we're going to go to the audiences. So I'm going to try out the spotlight feature. All right, Christopher George asks, I would love to hear about a high moment and a low moment from each speaker's career concerning audio direction. All right, let's start with you, Andrea.
Oh, man.
You can say that. We have plenty of
I don't know about low moments. Oh, yeah. Well, high moments, I mean, I think like it's such a grueling process. Like if you've worked in games or films, like it's just, it can eat away at you. It can, you know, burn you out, right? So, I mean, being able to just really see players love the game, love the sound of the game, I think it just makes all of that hard work that you put in it so rewarding. So, you know, I think that for me, that was one of, like, it's hard to say because each project I worked on was so different, but ultimately it's like when you realize that all of your hard work has come to fruition and people love the project and the audio helped contribute to that, I think that that is, you know, definitely a high moment. Other high moments, it's interesting, like when you become an audio director and all that, like sometimes you're hands-on, sometimes you're not hands-on, and then your end product is not necessarily always the audio. It's sometimes you're managing people, right, and sound designers, and being able to see sound designers grow under you, I think that's also a really high moment for me, because I'm like, wow, you know, I contributed to this person becoming the awesome sound designer that they are, right? And that's really rewarding for me. And I'm like, oh, that's why people become teachers, right? Because they like to, you know, watch people grow and flourish, right? So I would say that those are kind of some of the high moments. Low moments. There's like a lot of low moments. I'm just gonna generalize more because I don't want to say specific things. But you know, every company has its culture and its politics, and I think that sometimes you know, it becomes not about the audio, not about the project or the product. It becomes about, you know, other things, right? And unfortunately, that is, you know, just in any business that is the case, right? So there's, yeah, a lot of that kind of stuff can take joy away from, you know, and can contribute to toxic environments. And I think it's important to just, you know, always be happy, or like find something fulfilling in what your role is. And if you can't, then it probably means that you need to move on for your own mental health, right? And to something, because it's, yeah, I think it's just not worth it for a lot of creatives, right? Like, you know, we thrive more when we're in a healthy and happy place. And so I think that that's just something very important to think about. Like, you know, when I first started out, I was always like, I don't care. Like, I just want to work on a AAA thing. Like, I don't care about my mental health or like what all the stuff I have to go through. Like, I can do it. No problem. Right. But like, you know, now that I've worked in the industry for like, you know, a decent amount of time, I realized that that stuff, you know, it does get to you. And so it's important to value yourself, because if you don't value yourself, then sometimes that stuff will get to you at the end of the day. So that contributes to, you know, all those syndromes. So yeah, that's kind of my long answer to that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin.
Two little stories that came to mind. Both have highs and lows in them. I was doing the sound for a commercial, and it was a CG animated commercial, sort of like a tilt shift little diorama thing. And everything was very bright and plasticky. So I designed sounds that I thought were appropriate, and everyone was loving it until the very end, where one of the producers came back and said, no, it sounded like paper. And I'm like, okay, this is like a purple note. Nothing in here looks like it's made of paper. So as a FU, I took that note literally, replaced everything with paper, and then it was approved no notes. So it's like sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you really don't. Um, the other one is I'm far enough in my career where I've met younger sound editors who, like in middle school, were watching some of my first stuff on YouTube. And a lot of that stuff, even for me now, is difficult to go back and watch as an audience member because I have a little too much self critique about some of that early stuff. Like even at the time, it wasn't like, oh, it's perfect. It was like, oh, I really, could use more options for this cue or whatever. But I think, um, in a way, avoiding revisiting that work for years, it's nice hearing people who still really enjoyed it as a complete work. Like, even if your work doesn't meet your personal dream level standards at all times, sometimes it still is completely appropriate for the project and still helps the project succeed. And I think I had that shift where I've met a couple editors who are like, oh yeah, that was one of the things that got me into sound editing. It's like, oh really? The worst thing I ever did? But at the same time, that's really cool. So.
Awesome. I'm just trying to go as quickly as I can. I don't mean to ignoring anyone's answers. All right, what about you, Matthew?
I think the high points are the game, like Mark the Ninja as a high point. That was a game that I first really felt like my audio direction fit so well with the design of the game and everything. Like everything just came together so well on that. Like everything supported everything and made this amazing game. Don't Starve, I felt like that was a high moment because we came up with ideas that were very unique and worked, and was just like resonated so well with the audience and made this very unique experience for people. So that's been really cool. And kind of the low points are where like business politics come and studio politics have come in to take away from things as opposed to just like we're just serving the game. Like I've had massive creative differences with people, but it's at the end of the day been about this is making the best game. And that's been like, I totally disagree. Kind of like Kevin is saying, you're like, I don't think this is right, but like I'll do it. Okay, it worked for you, so great. But it's when the politicking stuff gets in the way of just making a great product is the low points where you're like, I don't want to be doing this. It sucks. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think politics and bad feedback are kind of like a common thread, or feedback that's just not constructive, almost on purpose. All right, we're going to check this one off. We're a bit over, so I'm just going to take 5 more minutes of questions. And after that, if anyone else is willing to answer questions, just raise your hand and I can throw them into our chat later. All right, so let's go to the next upvoted one. The next one is Matthew's cat taking questions? Matthew, what do you think? Is your cat taking any questions?
Very vocal. He's a pretty bad producer. He sleeps on the job all the time. This is dog. He is a very needy while he's here. The other cat is like, no, I'm fine. He's like, but I need to be on camera. People need to see me.
Very cute. I thought my cat would come in, but she hasn't. So it's a surprise. All right, so I'm going to read this one real quick before I reiterate it. So it's more of a managerial question. Well, let's see. So this would be if people were having specific employees, not just a one-man band. So I'll start with you for this, Kevin. How have you kept tags on your direct reports without breathing down their necks? And have you ever had to confront an employee who wasn't delivering to your expectations?
Yeah, what I generally do is set early deadlines or early benchmarks for everything. And I'm honest about it. I will let the editor know, hey, it'd be great if we can have everything done by, the second week of this month. We really don't need it until the end, but let's hit the second week of the month. If it's not ready, then give me an update in advance and we'll, figure out if we need to make an adjustment. And that's usually what I do. So I'll set the benchmarks early enough where if there's an issue, we'll catch it at that point and then we can address it. And then I definitely have had issues once in a while where someone just isn't quite, pulling their weight or hitting things on time. And I'll usually just be, straight up about it and, if necessary, replace the person. And, I try to make it clear it's not like, I hate you personally, but we need to get it done by this schedule and we're not meeting it. And if we can't make an adjustment, it's kind of no hard feelings, but I'll need to pivot and find someone else.
Yeah, it's definitely not personal, but there are deliverables that have to be done on time.
Yeah, I've been fortunate in my situation where I'm usually running small enough teams that when it comes to that, I can usually just absorb the remainder of the work. I don't know if I've had to on the fly really find someone else. It's usually last minute before the project starts, someone isn't available, which is kind of a different, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of fortunate in a way that you don't have to use the time to go find someone else, but it's still difficult, I'm sure, to lose someone. What about you, Andrea?
Generally, I have like one-on-ones with each of the sound designers every week, and then we review their work, as well as talk through any issues that they're having. And so in those one-on-ones, I'm able to assess both like where their work is at and give feedback on the spot, as well as like if they're having any issues with team members, any of that need to be nipped in the bud like early on. So those weekly one-on-ones are really important to kind of diagnose like the temperature of where their work is at and how happy or sad or they are in their job. But yeah, I mean, I've had situations where, like we've had to have performance improvement plans and, generally like, that's why hiring is very important. You want to make sure that the people you bring on are both skill-wise as well as culturally a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to end on a more lighthearted, quick one. And we'll start with you, Matthew. What is your favorite part of the job and what is your least favorite?
I love setting up that direction at the beginning. It's super fun to get into that exploratory stage and figure out what it is that we're making and how audio is going to support that, and coming up with the systems that are going to support that. And just sort of that pie in the sky time period at the beginning is super fun. And when you can be like, what about this wild idea? And you get to just throw everything against the wall. And then, I don't know, the least favorite is probably cutting all of those great fun ideas that you had, and distilling down to be like, that is such a great idea, but just does not fit this, sad pile of wonderful ideas that will never see the light of day.
Yeah, I have those in Notion that I thought would work, and then no, not this time.
But that's something where you kind of have to keep you got to move forward. Like, not every great idea fits every game, and you tuck that away for later, and maybe that's a great idea, and maybe another game down the line that'll work in. But it's just like it's no one's fault that it doesn't fit this project. And you just got to make sure in your head that you're like, we're doing what's right for this project, and to not overscoping yourself, and to be like, well, I'm going to make this super cool system that other audio people are going to like so jazzed for, and you're like, but it's not really doing anything for the game. It's just you're doing it for a GDC talk. So
yeah, absolutely. And that one idea that didn't work for this game might fit a core pillar for another, and it's going to be a shoe-in. So I definitely think so. What about for you, Kevin?
Yeah, I get when the work feels a little dangerous, like where I can't sleepwalk through it, where I don't have quite all the answers. And that's, to me, it's the core of the creativity. That's the most fun, as long as we have discussed, as you've established your general creative direction beforehand. If the project doesn't know what it wants to be, then that's maybe my least favorite, where I'm trying to make decisions about, is this a comedy or is this a serious drama? I can't tell. It's so poorly put together. But I always like going into a project where I don't quite know, what I'm going to do, where I can't just pull back on, oh, what did I do in this other thing, and sleepwalk through it. My other least favorite thing, of course, is dealing with hardware and software problems. Someone who's been around long enough, I've been through some pretty horrifying personal life experiences. Nothing scares me and gets like my blood pressure spike like something that seems like it's a hard drive problem or corruption. Those are the worst times. I'm full of Pro Tools. Enough to depend on it, they know better.
Ironically, you cut out when you said the word Pro Tools. So I'll just leave it at that. What about you?
Oh
no.
Did you want to finish your sentence, Kevin? I mean,
yeah, you're more than welcome to finish. Sorry. It's just
I was just saying, Pro Tools works just well enough that we depend on it, but absolutely no better than that.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. What about you, Andrea?
I think my favorite part is, sharing the work that I've worked on with friends or family, giving them the keys, beta keys, and then be like, hey, let's play the game together. I think my least favorite part, tech problems are very scary. Like if you have no backup, then, oh man, it's like, and the deadline is right there. But I think also politics and in the company, and also, not reading Reddit, like, because all the trolls are on Reddit. That's probably bad for your mental health. So those are my quick answers to that.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, everyone who participated in this. I feel like I learned a lot. I hope all of our participants learned a lot too, and the people who did the recordings. And please stay in touch. And thanks so much again. Hope to see you around the conferences.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Everybody. Super fun.